Occasionally I get hit up by people wanting to know just how you get to work in South Korea. So here's a little information on just what it takes. So there are two main things to consider if you want to work in Korea. The first is getting a visa, and after that you just have to find a place to work. Getting a visa is definitely the toughest part of all of this, so let's start with that. So there are a bunch of different visas available to work in Korea. The problem is if you want to work as a photographer, those options decrease pretty drastically. So the first and most common visa is the E7. This is basically when you get hired from abroad and a company just sponsors you to live and work here. This is possible, but it's very unlikely as a photographer. It's just that there are already plenty of people living and working here who happen to be Korean and also fantastic photographers and videographers. So it's a relatively small gap that you're trying to fill, especially coming in from abroad. The next option to consider is the E6 visa, or the artist's visa. When I first heard about this, I was like, great, that sounds like something I could do. Photography is art. Even found in the Korean annals of law that there was a clause specifically stating that photographers could get an artist visa to work here. But when I went into a lawyer's office with a Korean friend of mine for some backup, the lawyer basically just laughed us out of the office.
Is everything okay?
They said my work's not culturally significant enough to get me a visa.
Can I? Well,
It wasn't going to happen. I have a feeling that kind of clause is just a proviso for if maybe a very famous photographer from overseas wanted to live and work here for a while, maybe then that visa would be issued. But for me, and I think for most people, it's very unlikely. Okay, so we're 2 visas down and maybe you're starting to feel a little bit desperate, but don't worry, that's when we get the F6 visa or the marriage visa. Yeah, people have done it.
아무것도 모르면서 그래도 wanted more and more 전혀 신경 안 써 오히려 I like it but we so nasty 아무것도 필요 없이 모르면 저기 멀리서 so watch us right.
Okay, so there really are like dozens of different visas that apply to a wide variety of situations, and I can't claim to know what yours is. But the visa that I really want to tell you about is the one that I missioned for and the one that I think is just basically going to give you the most secure living experience here in Korea, and that's the F27 visa. So the F27 visa is the temporary residency visa. It can be upgraded to permanent, but that's for another day. So the temporary residency visa, or the F27, allows you to live in Korea where you want and work doing what you want. The way to get the visa is to qualify, and to qualify, you basically have to get a bunch of points. Once you've qualified, you can live in the country for up to several years, and so long as you keep re-qualifying, you can keep staying here. I just find it to be the way that gives you the most possible freedom to live and work here as you please. Most of the other visas available are kind of controlled by the places where you work, which is fine if you work at a company that you really love doing something you want to do, but it's kind of a common experience for people to come to this country and really like living here, but not be able to work doing what they want to do. And that's why getting the F27 visa is just the clearest option for living in this country, doing the kind of work that you want to do. So, how do you get the residency visa? Number 1, get enough points. There are a bunch of different categories for getting points. Cross the threshold and you're good to go. Number 2, be on the appropriate visa for the appropriate amount of time. For many people, that means teaching English. It's a good way to get into the country, and it's a really good job if it's the kind of thing that you like to do. And if you're working towards an F27 visa all the while, then all the better. So now that you have a job here on a different visa, that'll help you with number 3, earn enough money. So I can't tell you exactly how much money that is because it changes every year, but you need to earn a certain amount in order to qualify for the F27 visa. It's usually around about how much your average Korean worker earns in a year. Number 4, pay enough tax. Some other things to consider are age, studies, and previous job experience. The final hurdle to the F27? Learning to speak Korean. When I did it, I did the KIIP, which is both a language class and like a social integration class. So I learned both about the society here in Korea and history and culture, while I was learning things like grammar and vocabulary as well. It really was just a great way to learn about what it's like living here and sort of up my confidence just being here. One way or another, doing the Korean classes and learning how to speak the language even a little bit, it's going to help you get your visa and it's going to help you live here. Stay patient and persevere, and you can become a legal human being in South Korea. Okay, now that you have a visa, that's pretty much the hard part done. Next up, it's just choosing a place to work. Your first option is working for a company. You work for a company, it's pretty good. You get a salary and you get the 4 insurances, which every regular Korean worker gets. I've worked with just some of the absolute sweetest people I've ever met out here. I've had so many great experiences just working with a bunch of different teams, and it's really just been a very positive experience working at these companies with a bunch of different people. So the thing with working at a Korean company is that the hours and the expectations are notoriously intense. You also have to learn to deal with some kind of unusual hierarchies. It is a really good option, but it wasn't the right option for me. Next, there's option number 2, working at a studio. Now, I've never worked at a studio, but I know someone who has.
Yeah, dude.
Carl Jones. So dude, you worked at a studio here in South Korea?
Yeah, that's right. Like 7 years ago in 2015 for like, it ended up being like 8 months.
Is that enough time to like learn a studio? Like that was your first time working on one, right?
After those 8 months, I couldn't take it anymore. I was like so burnt out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't absorb anything more. I felt like I had learned everything I could in that situation and was like ready for the next step. But yeah, definitely went in there with my bag empty and came out full.
I have these like recollections of you freaking during that one winter.
Like, yeah, dude, every night my hands and feet were just these ice cubes getting home, dude. It was crazy.
Were any of the other dudes that you were working with like in there at that same time as you? Or were you just like, were you the lowest rung on the ladder, right?
I was the lowest rung in technical skills, but in the hierarchy of like age, I was the second youngest, so I wasn't the runt.
Was the runs of the studio like technically were they okay? Like did they have some like knowledge?
Technically, they were far superior to me. They were just the youngest, so they got treated badly. He was like my main teacher, actually, dude. Shout out to Moonjung. But then Moonjung, bless him, he also got me smoking cigarettes again. Studio life became like pretty hectic.
I mean, so you went into like working in a studio without like much sort of studio knowledge or expertise. Like, did you like the stuff that you learned? Was it like good, solid stuff?
Rewind like 4 days in, and one of the assistants being, "Carl, 3 C stands." Like, now, me running around the corner googling what is a C stand. I didn't know anything. Asked a lot to like sit over the shoulder of the retoucher woman who was working in the studio for like an hour a day, just like sit behind her and watch her work. And while other photographers were setting up for stuff, it's like go and help them set up. You know, the hours were brutal. We didn't get paid. And
dude, freak, last one. What what were the other dudes that you were working with like?
I definitely had clashes with some of the other photographers in the studio, but also learned like so much from them. Getting invited onto a shoot, being hands-on, seeing how the plan gets transformed into the shoot, and then seeing that shoot or image in magazine or in print. That was like an invaluable process of watching the images be real in the world.
Homie, so freaking good to chat to you always. Have a feeling good one. I'll catch you
Much love,
a couple weeks time. Your third choice is working freelance. This is what I've chosen for a couple reasons. The first reason is it gives you the most control over your time. When you're working for a company out here, or if you're working for a studio, your time basically belongs to them. When you're working as a freelancer, you get to decide how you spend your days for the most part. I mean, you still have responsibilities and places that you have to go, but you have a lot more freedom to come and go as you please. The second reason I chose to work freelance is because at the best of times, you can earn more money. So working for one company out here, you might have a bit of a limitation to how much you can earn. But as a freelancer, you're drawing your income from several different companies instead of just one, and so the potential for earning a little bit more is just that much better. The last reason that I've chosen working as a freelancer in Korea, even though it's a little bit insecure and the boss kind of sucks, is that you can really just get the most out of living here in this country. When you're not tied to a company, you can move around and spend your time just that much better. It really is just the most freeing option that there is. So there are a couple different ways to live and work in Korea. And you have to find out which way is the right way for you. The way that I did it took quite a long time. Like, it was a fair investment of effort and energy and just my life, I suppose. But ultimately, I found it to be worth it. From the time I decided that this was the kind of visa that I wanted to get, it probably took me between 1.5 years and 2 years to really get everything settled. It really was a time-consuming process, but ultimately it gave me the freedom to live in this country and work in the way that I wanted to. If that's something that you want, then I hope you go for it. It really is worth it. So how do you go about getting a visa? Oh. Yeah, stop that with my shit. Oh.